I brought my husband's cell phone into the repair shop. The technician, a man I'd known since he was a teenager trying to fix his first cracked iPod screen, pulled me aside with a grave look that wiped the humor clean off his face. "Zahara," he said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper that seemed too loud in the quiet shop. "Cancel your credit cards and change your home's security codes right now. Don't go home alone tonight." I blinked, the movement feeling slow, as if my 66-year-old brain couldn't process the simple sequence of words. "Jamal Williams, what in the world are you talking about? Has someone hacked Elijah's phone?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned closer to the workbench, his shadow falling over the cracked glass of the device. Jamal turned the phone's screen toward me, and there they were, perfectly clear, chillingly precise. A list of scheduled messages that laid out the logistics of my death with the cool efficiency of a grocery list. I've always believed that the quiet, everyday choices are the most revealing. The ones we make without thinking, driven by habit, and the comfortable belief that tomorrow will look exactly like today. That Tuesday morning in Charleston, South Carolina, the air thick with the damp, musky smell of the low country, I made one such choice. I picked up Elijah's phone from the cherry wood nightstand we bought on our 40th wedding anniversary. I noticed the hairline fracture in the screen he'd been grumbling about for weeks, that tiny, spider-webbed flaw, and decided to take it straight to Jamal Williams's shop off King Street, right between the popular coffee spot and the black-owned bookstore. It was a chore, an act of wifely maintenance, nothing more. My name is Zahara Toussaint. I'm 66 years old. Elijah and I have been married for 41 years, long enough for our lives to have settled into a deep, predictable rut that I had, until that moment, mistaken for security. We raised 3 children: Langston, our careful, detail-oriented lawyer in Atlanta; Nia, the fiery artist in New Orleans; and Kimani, our sensitive youngest boy who was teaching high school history back in Charlotte. We raised them in our restored historic home in Cannonboro, Elliottboro, watching them grow, head off to college, and return for the holidays with our grandchildren in tow, filling the tall ceilings with their joyful noise. I worked as a reference librarian for 37 years before retiring, a profession that taught me the value of data, research, and quiet persistence. Elijah, a successful dentist, still practices 3 days a week, though he constantly talks about retiring fully, selling the practice, buying a condo somewhere smaller, lighter. We are, by all accounts, comfortable, established, and safe. We are, I thought, a success story. Elijah had already left for his office that morning, the heavy thud of the front door closing at 7:30 a.m., precisely on schedule. The night before, he'd been noticeably jumpy, pacing the kitchen floorboards, which creaked in a familiar, comforting rhythm, and checking his phone over and over, his thumb swiping the screen with restless energy. When I asked him what the matter was, a rare intrusion into his world, he gave me that practiced, calming smile, the one he used for his most anxious patients, and assured me, "Just a minor issue with the clinic's billing software, Zahara. Nothing to worry your pretty head about." I'd learned long ago not to press Elijah when he used that tone. Our marriage, I now realize, wasn't built on mutual understanding, but on a foundation of clearly defined boundaries and silent concession. He managed the investments, the practice, and the vast, cold logic of money. I managed the home, the social life, and the warm, complex logic of family. It worked. It had always worked, or so I believed, by creating separate spheres that rarely intersected. Jamal's Electronics was more than a shop. It was a neighborhood landmark, a brightly lit sanctuary of modern technology in the heart of a historically black business district. Jamal himself was practically family. His son Malik was in my book club, constantly challenging my interpretations of Toni Morrison. His wife Shonda, a sorority sister, had brought me her famous Gullah chicken soup when I had the flu a few years back, staying late to gossip and braid my hair. The community was an intricate, tightly woven quilt, and Jamal was a strong thread in its pattern. The bell above the door chimed, a cheerful, brassy sound that felt deeply inappropriate for the terror I was about to receive. Jamal looked up from a laptop he was dissecting, his reading glasses perched on his forehead like a small crown. "Mrs. Toussaint, what brings you by so early? Did your Kindle finally give up the ghost?" "Elijah's phone," I said, holding up the cracked device. "He's been carrying it around like this for a month, acting like he's too busy for a simple repair. You know how men are about minor inconveniences." Jamal chuckled, the comfortable sound of shared exasperation over the male species. "Gotcha. Leave it with me. Should be ready by 4 o'clock, maybe sooner." He paused, reaching for a work order slip. "What's the access code? His old 4-digit PIN?" I recited the 6 digits. His mother's birth date. 06 to 12/56. The same code he'd used for everything, his briefcase, his luggage, his bank debit card, since the day we met. Simple. Predictable. Elijah Montgomery was not a man who appreciated complexity, a fatal flaw I had failed to observe for 4 decades. "Perfect," Jamal said. "I'll call you when I'm done." I spent the day like any other, walking through the motions of the life Elijah had planned to erase. I attended my aqua aerobics class at the community center, letting the cool, buoyant water ease the stiffness in my joints. Lunch was with my friend Aisha, who lamented her daughter's messy divorce with the weary resignation of a mother who saw the train coming but couldn't halt the momentum. Then, a trip to the supermarket. I bought a 2-pound cut of wild-caught salmon for dinner, expensive, shimmering pink and silver under the fluorescent lights, because Elijah loved it, paired with a Sauvignon Blanc I knew he enjoyed. I was curating my own final meal, and I didn't even know it. The call came at 3:30. "Mrs. Toussaint, it's Jamal. The phone's repaired, but—" He hesitated. The silence was not the comfortable, professional pause of a busy technician. It was a deep, chilling shift in the atmosphere, thick with unspoken dread. "Could you come in? I need you to see something. And please, please come alone." "Is there an issue with the screen? Did you lose his data?" I asked, my voice thin. "No, the screen is perfect. The data is all there. Just, please come back now, and please come alone." I had known Jamal for 15 years. I'd never heard that careful, almost frightened tone in his voice. The 12-minute drive back to King Street felt like hours stretched by taffy. At 66, you learn to recognize the moments just before the earth moves. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, gripped at 10 and 2, but my heart was drumming against my ribs like a trapped bird beating its wings against its cage. Jamal was waiting by the door. He didn't greet me. He simply ushered me inside, locked the door with a sharp metallic clack, and flipped the sign to "closed." He led me, without a word, to his back repair station, a clean, fluorescent-lit area smelling of solder and isopropyl alcohol. Elijah's phone sat on the bench, screen dark and gleaming, impossibly whole. "Zahara," he said, his voice stripped of all professional pretense. The use of my first name, shorn of the respectful Mrs. Toussaint, confirmed my deepest, unarticulated fears. This was beyond business. This was personal. "You need to hear me. You need to act. Cancel the accounts. Change the home locks today, right now. I've never seen anything like this, Zahara." The room seemed to tilt violently. I gripped the cool edge of the workbench, the laminated surface digging into my palms to steady myself. "What in the name of God are you saying, Jamal?" When I was testing the new screen, I had to transfer some data to ensure function. I stumbled across something in his messages, scheduled messages. Jamal's jaw worked, his eyes wide and sick with regret. I almost wish I hadn't looked. I almost wish I'd just deleted it as a glitch. But once I saw the first few lines, "Zahara, you have to see this for yourself." He picked up the phone, unlocked it with the code I'd given him, and navigated to a feature I didn't know existed, a hidden folder labeled Delayed Sends. There were 7 messages, all addressed to the same external number, all set to send over the next 3 months, timed with chilling mathematical precision. Jamal handed me the phone, pulling his hand away as if the device were poisonous. "I am so sorry, Zahara, for all of this." I read the first message, then the second. By the third, the breath had abandoned my lungs, and the world had gone cold and metallic. I had to sit down on the stool behind me. The messages were from Elijah to someone identified only as S. They weren't clumsy, passionate love notes of an aging man's infidelity. They were cold, logistical, and frighteningly precise instructions. The text was a blueprint of my execution, a business plan for my erasure. The life insurance policy is in the safe deposit box at the Wells Fargo branch. Key is under the second row of books, the old leather-bound set of Kipling, in the study. Death benefit is $750,000. Zahara's signature is already on file with the company. They won't question it. I've been documenting her cognitive issues and forgetfulness discreetly with Dr. Alston since August. This establishes a verifiable pattern if questions arise later. The current will leaves everything to the kids, but I'm the designated executor. I'll control the distribution and, with her memory issues, they won't contest. Once the probate clears, we can access the funds without suspicion. 6 months, maybe 8, for complete freedom. Remember, grief is expected. The performance must be flawless. I'll play the devastated widower. The community, especially the church and her friends like Aisha, will support me completely. No one questions a man who's lost his wife of 4 decades to a sudden, tragic decline. My vision tunneled down to the crisp white font on the screen. The financial betrayal was a sharp blow, but the mention of Dr. Alston, our family physician and a friend for 20 years, was a betrayal that went bone deep. He was fabricating a medical history, turning my very mind into a weapon against me. I scrolled, my thumb shaking slightly, to the final message, scheduled to send exactly 3 months from today. It's done. The homegoing service was yesterday. I handled the eulogy, though it was difficult, as planned. Everything went according to plan, right down to the color of the flowers. No one suspects a thing. I'll see you in South Beach next week, Flight 307. The condo is ready, and the deed is in both our names now. Our new life starts now, S. The date of that message was January 12th. In Elijah's mind, I was already dead and buried. I don't know who S is. Jamal's voice came from far away, a dull buzzing sound. I don't know his specific plan, how he intends to do it, but these messages... Zahara, he's documenting your death before it happens. He is planning to murder you for financial gain. I looked up at him. Jamal's face was pale, his large hands trembling slightly as he held his own phone. This man, a father and pillar of the community, was standing witness to the collapse of my entire existence. Have you told anyone else? My voice, when it came out, was unnervingly calm, the flat, steady tone of a librarian addressing a noisy patron. No, Jesus, no. I called you straight away. Zahara, we need to call the police, right now. You can't go home. No, I repeated, a hard, cold core of pure, unadulterated resolve forming in my chest. I stood fully, using the workbench for support, not out of weakness, but to anchor myself to the reality of the situation. If we call the police now, what do we have? Messages on a phone. He'll say they were drafts, some sick, messed-up fiction he was writing. He's Dr. Elijah Toussaint, a respected dentist, a church elder, and a prominent homeowner. I'm a retired librarian he's been telling people has minor cognitive issues. Who do you think they'll believe, Jamal? Who will the jury see as the unstable one? Jamal knew I was right. The system always defaults to trusting the prominent, wealthy man. I looked back at the phone, at the messages that laid out my death like a doctor's appointment. Clinical, scheduled, inevitable. I need to copy these, I said, picking up the device. Every single one. And then I need you to repair this phone as if nothing, absolutely nothing, ever happened. Not a single data trace must be disturbed. Zahara, what are you going to do? You are going to put yourself in danger. I thought about Elijah pacing the kitchen last night. Was he checking these messages, ensuring they were queued, planning my murder with the same careful attention he used to plan our family's elaborate trip to the Tuscan countryside 2 years ago? The sheer arrogance of it was what finally broke the shock and left a burning residue of rage. "I'm going to find out who S is," I said quietly, the word S tasting like ash. "I'm going to find out exactly what he's planning, and then I'm going to make sure the only funeral that happens in January is the one for his career and his reputation." Jamal stared at me, then slowly, reluctantly, pulled out his own phone. "I'll take screenshots, every screen. I'll send them to my encrypted email account. We need hard evidence that's outside the phone, evidence of the time and date I found them." As he photographed each text, I forced myself to reread them again, focusing past the initial shock and panic and into the research mode I'd perfected as a librarian. Elijah had been laying groundwork for months, fabricating a medical narrative, reviewing our finances, our life insurance, our entire estate. He'd found someone, this mysterious S, to conspire with, to run away to a new life in South Beach. His confidence was stunning. He was so certain of success that he'd scheduled messages to send after my death, detailing my eulogy. He'd made one crucial, arrogant mistake, the kind men like Elijah always made when they stopped seeing the woman beside them and only saw the fixture. He had underestimated me. He looked at his 66-year-old wife, the one who did morning yoga, attended her service organization meetings, and cooked his expensive salmon dinners, and saw someone easily erased. He forgot that librarians are master researchers, that we know how to trace connections, build cases from scattered facts, and that a black woman who survives this long in this world is rarely a naive victim. Jamal finished, the process taking 5 agonizing minutes. "It's done. The pictures are locked down. What now?" "Now you fix this screen beautifully, Jamal. And when Elijah picks it up tomorrow, you tell him everything worked perfectly. No data lost, no problems at all. Tell him you had to run a diagnostic to check the accelerometer, but that's it." "And you, Zahara?" I slipped the phone into my purse, feeling the cold weight of the device, a weapon of betrayal now turned into a tool for retribution. "I'm going home to make dinner, and then I'm going to start pulling every thread of my husband's carefully constructed lie." I walked out of that repair shop into the Charleston afternoon. The sun was setting over the Ashley River, painting the sky a dangerous, deceptive gold and crimson. Beautiful, deceptive, just like 41 years of marriage that had hidden a murder plot beneath its calm surface. Elijah wanted me dead by January 12th. He was going to be severely disappointed. I cooked the salmon that evening with the mechanical precision that comes from 4 decades of muscle memory. Sear for 4 minutes, finish with a sprig of fresh lemon and dill. Asparagus roasted crisp tender on the side. I moved through our large open-plan kitchen with its expensive granite countertops I'd chosen and the copper pots Elijah's mother had gifted us, feeling like a ghost haunting my own life. Every object, the Cuisinart mixer, the neatly stacked plates, the woven runner rug, was a monument to a lie I had maintained. Elijah arrived home at 6:15, exactly as he had for 41 years. I heard his key in the lock, the familiar pattern of his footsteps, heavy, purposeful, a man who knows he owns the space he walks into. He appeared in the doorway, still wearing his immaculate white dental coat, and smiled. "Something smells wonderful, dear," he said, kissing my cheek. His lips felt cold against my skin, the brief contact making my stomach clench. "How was your day, Elijah?" I asked, my voice level, the tone I'd perfected over 4 decades of performance, the agreeable, slightly passive wife. "Long. Mrs. Davenport needed a root canal, and you know how she talks, complains about the humidity, the potholes, the entire state legislature." He loosened his silk tie, the small, familiar gesture of coming home, of shedding the professional skin. "How about yours? What did you do today, Zahara? Did you meet with Aisha?" This was the test, the first subtle hurdle. I set down the spatula and turned to face him, leaning casually against the kitchen island. I had a good day, and yes, I took your phone to Jamal's. He said he'd finish the final testing overnight so you can pick it up first thing tomorrow morning on your way into the office. I watched his face, searching for the smallest flicker of panic, a twitch around his eyes, a tightening of the jaw, any sign that he remembered the danger hidden in that device. Nothing. His smile was steady, his eyes clear and dismissive. The arrogance was staggering. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, dear. I kept meaning to do that, but the practice has been a mess. He pulled a light beer from the fridge, the hiss of the can opening sounding like a serpent. Jamal do his usual good work? Perfect as always, I said, turning back to the salmon, allowing the facade of normalcy to settle over the kitchen like a thin, invisible gas. He didn't suspect. He had planned my murder with such clinical confidence that it never occurred to him that the phone, the simple tool of his business, might betray him. Arrogance. It would be his downfall, just as it had been his companion for the last 4 decades. We ate dinner at the mahogany table, polished so fine it reflected the overhead chandelier. Elijah talked about his new assistant and Langston's upcoming visit for Thanksgiving. Normal conversation, routine lies. Actually, Elijah said, setting down his fork, his eyes holding a look of manufactured concern, I've been thinking about the holidays. Maybe we should have everyone here this year. A big, spectacular gathering. Our last big gathering before... He trailed off, gesturing vaguely around the grand dining room. Before what, Elijah? I asked, forcing the question out, the ice crystallizing in my gut. Before we get too old for this big place, he said smoothly, taking a sip of wine. I've been considering downsizing, maybe a condo closer to the water. Less maintenance, less upkeep. He reached across the table and patted my hand, the gesture patronizing and intimate at the same time. And honestly, Zahara, I've been worried about you. The stairs, the sheer size of the garden, your memory lately. I think something smaller, simpler, might be better for your peace of mind. My memory? There it was. He was laying groundwork even at the dinner table, making his case for my decline in the most insidious way possible, with supposed care. My memory is fine, Elijah, I said quietly, meeting his gaze. My hand did not flinch beneath his. Of course it is, dear, he replied with that damnable practiced smile. I just want what's best for you. For us. After dinner, Elijah retreated to his study. A dark, mahogany-paneled domain of professional journals, tax records, and the carefully locked safe deposit key. His domain. I cleaned the kitchen with manic precision, scrubbing away every trace of our shared, terrible meal. Then I went upstairs. I looked at our bedroom, the queen bed we'd shared for 4 decades, the wedding photos on the dresser, all framed in silver. Which side of the bed would Serafina Vance sleep on once I was dead? Would she move the photos? Would she even bother to change the sheets? I sat at the corner desk, opened my laptop, and began to search. Finding S would not be easy. A single initial offered no digital trail. But Elijah was a creature of habit, and habits leave digital footprints. I started with his personal email using the same mother's birthdate code. He'd never bothered to hide his accounts. Why would he? I was just Zahara, his agreeable wife, the one who handled the grocery order, not the spreadsheets. His inbox was mundane, a tedious chronicle of a respectable, privileged life. Practice updates, golf course tea time confirmations, investment firm newsletters. I scrolled back 6 months, looking for an S name. Nothing. I checked his sent folder and deleted items. Hours passed in the quiet house, only the gentle hum of the refrigerator for company. At 11 o'clock, I found the first thread. It was in a folder I almost missed, labeled, with staggering banality, Private Client Docs. Buried among legitimate emails from dental supply companies and an outdated financial planner was a message from 3 months ago addressed to someone named S. Vance. The partnership contract is ready for your review. Once this is finalized and signed, we can move forward with the operational aspects of the acquisition. I've attached the financials you requested. As you can see, the practice is quite profitable, more than enough for both of us to secure the relocation. Partnership. S. Vance wasn't just a lover. This was business, a planned liquidation. I opened the attachment. It was a detailed financial statement of Elijah's dental practice, but the numbers were nearly 3 times what he'd shown me on our tax forms. He had been skimming and hiding profit for years. The practice was valued at nearly $2 million net, and there was a chilling notation at the bottom. Asset liquidation timeline, January 2025. January, the month I was supposed to die. My hands shook, but my mind was utterly clear. I knew what I had to do. I searched for more emails from S. Vance. There were 7, each carefully hidden in the same folder. The story developed like a Polaroid picture. Serafina Vance, 42 years old, was a business consultant specializing in high-value medical practice acquisitions. The emails started professionally, discussing valuations and mergers, but by the 3rd, the tone had shifted entirely. I appreciate your discretion regarding the personal aspects of this transition. As discussed, a clean break from your current situation will make the sale and relocation much simpler and less legally messy. I'm looking forward to our new arrangement in Florida. Current situation, he meant me, the wife he couldn't afford to divorce. Then, an email from late August. I've reserved the condo in South Beach. 2 bedrooms, a private balcony, ocean view, as you requested. We can close as soon as your affairs here are settled. Don't worry about the deposit. I handled it through the shell company. I clicked the listing photos. A luxury condominium, all white marble and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the turquoise Atlantic. A $2 million price tag, to be purchased with the proceeds from Elijah's practice and, presumably, my life insurance. I took screenshots of everything. The transfers, the valuation, the pictures of the condo, emailed them to a private, encrypted address I'd created years ago for family documents, and cleared my browser history. It was past midnight when I finally climbed into bed beside my husband. He was already asleep, snoring softly, one arm flung across my pillow. I lay rigid in the dark and listened to him breathe, listened to the rhythmic sound of the man who planned to kill me. Had I really never seen the cold, calculating stranger beneath the surface? Or had I simply chosen 41 years ago to ignore the truth in favor of comfort? The next morning, I drove not to the community center, but to the main branch of the Charleston County Library. The building was an anchor of my life, smelling of old paper, polished wood, and possibility. I knew every resource, every database, and every person who worked there. Zahara! Marian Andrews, the head reference librarian and my former protege, smiled warmly from behind the main desk. Missing us already? Come back to check on your old Dewey Decimals? Can't stay away, dear, I said, forcing a return smile. Marian, I need a massive, urgent favor. I need to research someone, and it has to be quiet, absolutely confidential. Marian's expression sharpened, the academic curiosity in her eyes replaced by the deep loyalty of a friend who knew my voice too well. Come into my office, Zahara. The door has a lock. In the small, windowless office, beneath the hum of the fluorescent lights, I told her a carefully edited version of the truth, that I suspected Elijah was planning a massive financial exit, selling his practice and leaving the country, and that I needed everything on his supposed business partner, Serafina Vance. I didn't mention the murder. That truth was too big to speak aloud yet, a terrible, poisonous thing I had to keep contained. Serafina Vance, Marian repeated, typing quickly, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Let's see what corporate filings and public records turn up. Over the next 3 hours, the results were damning. Serafina Vance was a consultant specializing in medical practice acquisitions. She was 42, divorced, based in Atlanta, but had recently relocated to Charleston to oversee a significant new acquisition. She's local? I asked, leaning over the screen. Very. She bought a penthouse downtown on East Bay Street 6 months ago. Paid cash, $800,000. Where did a consultant get that kind of money, Marian? A quick search of her LinkedIn profile shows her company dissolved 2 years ago. Marion, eyes widened in alarm, traced the woman's financial history through a maze of corporate records and bank transfers. Serafina had been drowning in debt from a spectacular business failure 2 years prior. The East Bay condo had been purchased through a Nevada-based shell company, and the money had been transferred directly from an account belonging to Elijah's dental practice.